Welcome to the Resilience Catalyst podcast, where we help you to simplify resilience so you can excel in your work, in your life, help your teams to be more successful. My name is Joyce Odidison, and I'm your host today. And have you ever wondered why sometimes team members aren't being themselves? They may be caging, hiding, struggling, and you just don't know what is going on with these team members. Why are they not trusting you? Maybe there's a reason for that. Maybe it has to do with the questions. This month, we're focusing on helping teams and team members to be more cohesive, to create more dialogue, more trust, and collaboration. And I have a guest today. Today's show, I will introduce Taresa Scott of Blueprint. Teresa helps team leaders and teams to be more agile. So she's the chief learning strategist at Blueprint, and she helps corporate to remove those corporate frictions so that teams can answer questions, ask questions, feel heard, and be part of the dialogue. So I will introduce Teresa and give her an opportunity to share a bit about herself with you and give you some time to uh, to really learn about what she does and what she brings. And I'm really excited about sharing her story with you, sharing how she came to realize what wasn't working in the team and how teams can be more agile. I can't wait. Let's hear it from Teresa. Are you part of a team? Have you ever worked on a team and wondered why isn't my team working the way it should? Well, my name is Joyce Edison, and welcome to the Resilience Catalyst podcast. This is where we help to make resilience simple and make it something you can attain, you can measure, you can map, and you can understand so you can be successful in your work, in your life, in your career. I'm so glad to be talking to our guest today because she works with teams. My guest today is Teresa Scott. She's from Blueprint and she is the chief learning strategist who replaces corporate friction with human centered solutions. Teresa has spent her career building herself up, and today she's going to share with us some of the tidbits that she provides for organizations. Teresa, welcome.
Thank you, Joyce.
Okay, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been in corporate learning and development, nearly 10 years now. Um, and I've been around the workforce where I've helped teams to, one, build training from the ground up when they're trying to implement a new process, introduce a new system, upskill in different areas. And on the flip side, I've evolved into a consultancy, which is Blueprint. And so our goal is to really help organizations to really strengthen their employee retention, get to the root of why teams are not as agile, why they're not able to progress. If they're not getting over that hump, what is that challenge or that key skill that's necessary to help them get to that next phase, not just for the health of the team, but overall for their career, to again lead to greater employee retention for these organizations. So a lot of the work we do is really around um, tailored to the individual so they're able to again level up and get the skills they need to learn, grow, thrive, all the things they need to be successful with their organization but throughout their career.
Okay. So you work with organizations, you're looking at the team, not just for the team, but also for the individual members of the team. Because at the end of the day, it's individual members who make up a team. And sometimes I think we forget that when we start talking about team, it's who makes up the team. Because if the individuals who make up the team aren't doing well, then the team itself isn't going to do well. And when we
Absolutely.
start to look at the DNA of a team and pull back the layers, we need to see how is the team makeup? Who is part of the team? How are each of these team members contributing to the team? So what are some things you usually find when you're through this process?
You know, there are various team dynamics and multiple perspectives. And the greatest thing that I've learned over the years is when I work with these teams, initially executive leaders will bring me in to help their workforce, right? And it's catered to the individual. It's to really help their teams build these key skills. Then the other second half of the challenge, though, is how do we get them to implement these skills once they've been delivered that training? And so I talk heavily about self awareness and leadership because when we think about employee retention, leaders are the glue to the organization. Anyone who's in that director level, they're the ones right smack in the middle between executive leaders and those people, those individuals that they manage that make or break whether someone has the best time or the worst time ever at their organization. It's really helping organizations get out of their own way and understanding that people don't quit companies; they quit bad leaders. And so it is getting to the root cause of how do we help reconnect that leader back to the individuals on the team to really see them as people, as individuals who have goals, aspirations, families, and things they're providing for, that they're more than just numbers on a spreadsheet. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense, and it very much aligns with what we do and what we talk about. And we, I host the What's Happening at Work podcast, and we focus a lot on what do you what is happening for you at work, because what happens for you at work will impact your life, right? It will impact your workplace, it will impact the way you behave with your team members, and you bring it home with you,
Yeah.
vice versa. So team members are not just people who show up at work, they're individuals with lives. And what we've noticed is that when you help people to develop themselves and be the best that they can be, they tend to be better team members.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes.
Because when we talk about authenticity at work, I've seen a lot about a discussion saying, don't bring your whole self to work, but be your authentic self. And I think there is a balance. Because let's be honest, who you are at home is who you are at work. And when you come home from work, like you mentioned, it impacts you. If you had a
Yes.
stressful day, that comes home to your husband or your wife or your kids. You're having to debrief. And the same thing if you're having a great day. You come in, you're in a good mood, you want to talk about it. They go hand in hand. When we talk about
Yes.
work life balance, that
Mhm.
that's really the ultimate goal of understanding how do we manage ourselves, right? How do we manage our emotions? How do we take ourselves and see other perspectives outside of our own to really recognize how do we show up the best? How can I
Mhm.
support you the best to be that best version of yourself?
Yes.
Saying, you know what? I see you're not just the project manager. You're not just the analyst. You are, Teresa Scott. You are Joyce Odidison. You are an individual. Who are you? And that's
Mhm.
okay to get down to the root of that and have those conversations to get to know your people and how
That
to
is
really
such
work
an
with us.
important aspect. I think that gets lost. And it gets lost for a number of reasons.
Mhm.
Because you have a team of 50 people or 250 people. How much time do you have, right? You need to have those people in smaller groups, and then you have to meet with some, and you have to cut up the time that you have. So the size of your team will determine how much time you can give to each team member.
Mhm.
And as an organization, you have to do things that will benefit the whole versus just one, because it takes time and money
Mhm.
to attend to each person needs. And this is one of the reasons why we've created the Wiz Resilience platform, because when I started working with employees as a conflict analyst, I was seeing them showing up with conflicts in their team, disrespectful behavior, they were bullying, they were not getting along with their boss and their coworkers. But then I started to notice that there was more going on underneath.
Mhm.
And as I created the system to help them connect with themselves, reconnect with who they are, and start looking at themselves and working on themselves, these people were having less conflict. They were happier. They were more engaged. They wanted to be more productive. And now that we've built it into the platform, they get that immersive personal experience. And they say the same thing. I've never spent this much time thinking about myself. It's a
Mhm.
20-minute survey. 20 minutes. But the experience, the walkthrough, the questions that get them thinking, that gets them to the place of creating awareness of who they are, They value that, and now they're looking, okay, how do I bring that back? What am I adding to my team? On a scale, when we do that at scale and have everybody in the team have the same experience, you have better results, you have better team. But you use a different method. Tell us a little bit about your method you use for team to help your teams to be more agile.
Yeah, and I love that you bring up tools because I always tell people when we're looking at tools, they're conversation starters. They're not the end all be all. And something you mentioned earlier is that if you are in a 50 plus person organization that you're leading 50 plus people, I talk about building 2 minute habits. 2 minute habits are literally leveraging tools you have. If you're working from home, if it's a Slack, if it's a Teams message, you know, rather than saying those what questions that feel like, what is the reason this project is behind, or or rather, what challenges are you facing today? What obstacles are you needing to overcome with? Are you needing any support? You have any questions? Things that are supportive rather than accusatory. And
Yeah.
but it's leveraging these tools. Like I said, 2 minute habits of sending a Slack message, sending a team message. If you're in the office, you pass people up and down the halls, up and down, you go past the cubicles in the desk. Simply just tapping on the shoulder, saying, "Hey, how are you today?" I've literally been the person, and I've witnessed other, even executive leaders, who know many of their employees at all levels by names. Even just little tidbits of, whether it's, their kids or different, or like some small challenges or what they're doing for the weekend. You know, 2 minutes is all it takes to build healthy relationships. And the goal is really to be consistent in that. And then when we're leveraging tools on top of it, you have to, a lot of HR leaders say, Teresa, we're doing these strengths finders, we're doing our personality assessments, we're doing all of these things, but we're not seeing any change. Well, are you making the intentional uh, steps to dig into the information against a conversation starter? So are you sitting down with your employee saying, "Hey, I know you completed that 5 minute assessment from StrengthsFinders. I see that you're a learner, you're ambitious, you're a adventurer. What does that mean? Like, what do you like to learn? You like to travel to different places? It's all about curiosity." And I think when we allow ourselves to be a little more curious about the person in front of us or the person walking past us, it's
Hmm.
really how we can maximize these tools, and really maximize, again, seeing the individual outside of just their job title. When people feel that connection, when they feel they're being seen, you know, that's building a healthy dynamic, it's building a healthy team, and it's strengthening the brand. Because people, when you think about different companies, all these accolades for greatest places to work, they didn't start from just people getting a badge because it felt good. It came from a lot of chatter from people realizing, hey, I feel seen and valued here because of X, Y, and Z, and I really enjoy it. And you would enjoy this thing here too, based on X, Y, and Z, the experience that I'm having, and understanding that my leaders are, they're supporting me. We're having these conversations. I feel like when I come to work, I'm not just doing a job, I'm actually helping people. I'm really contributing to the greater good of the organization, or something that really matters to me. And
Hmm.
these 2 minute moments to get this started, to start implementing that, because we're all very busy, right? Is to say, it's a moment of kindness. It's a moment of truth. Like, it doesn't take a whole lot of time to really shift the culture, to really shift perspectives, to really see someone for who they are outside of just a title.
And it really does go back to interest, right? When leaders have interest and show interest in their people show interest in the work, they show interest in their team. So what goes around comes around. As there is work to do with leaders, there is also work to do with employees, because we know that today many employees show up empty. By
Oh,
the time they turn on the clock or they turn on the computer, they're empty. They have nothing left to give, because we are living in a resilience deficit. People are like worn out. They're stretched, tapped out. Their brain is overstretched, doing so many different things, multitasking. They're looking at all kinds of, especially in a time like now, they're looking at all kinds of things on the TV. They're looking at wars, they're looking at death, they're looking at destruction, displacement. So people are coming to work, and a lot of negative news and social media feeds and All of these things are impacting employees before they come into work.
Mhm.
This is why we need to give them more tools, or a space where they feel safe, where they can go and just reflect on themselves and the things that are important in their lives. And this is why we teach the 9 dimensions, because in there they look at their spiritual, their social, their emotional, they look at occupational, intellectual, environmental, they look at financial, physical, and then interpersonal. Then they're able to identify how well am I doing in those areas of my life. Where do I need help? What resources do I need? What is my mindset around this area? What am I doing to contribute to my well-being? And then they get a full resilience score that shows them a quantifiable number, like where are you, how resilient are you? Because just like you save money for the bank, you are in the bank for a rainy day, you're supposed to be building resilience for when things get tough, because they are going to get tough. We're living in a very strange world where things, natural disasters, floods, earthquakes, those are more common than they used to be before, or at least they're more well reported. We know of them more, and so when team members come in, they may have other things on their mind, they may be, and so it's really important for work to become a place where they are safe, they get the learning tools, they get that I care about you, there's psychological safety, they can have common language, because that's truly what creates a resilient team. It's the culture, right?
Correct.
And at the end of the day, we have to ensure that that is built in for the team to be resilient, because our culture is very, very much the rule of law in the workplace.
Yeah. And it's something I like that you brought up was all the life happening. When I say life happening, the wars, you can't hop on LinkedIn without seeing another layoff at a big organization. There are so many challenges outside of our control happening right now, and I think that what's scary about the times that we're in is that inflation is high, gas prices up, all the things are taking place around us, and the flip side of that, if people are fearful of losing their job, there's a real thing called job hugging happening
Hmm.
right now,
Hmm.
where people they literally hate their job. They're doing the bare minimum, but they're holding on to for dear life because they would hate to be the person that's in that 1,000 plus number layoff,
Yep.
or that person who's been unemployed for the last year and a half who has all the experience and accolades because the market is that tough.
Hmm.
When you think about that level of stress that people go to work every day, overwhelmed with the job itself, given more tasks than their pay grade allows, and less tasks that feed their desires and their interests that where they really want to grow and stretch themselves to, you know, it is it's a kind of a disheartening time. And when I think about leveraging these tools, building in 2 minute habits, really seeing people is understanding that the world life is happening all around us. We can't
Oh,
escape it.
yes.
You know, this is one of those areas as a leader where you can control the controllable and say, you know what, I can't solve everyone's problems, but you know what, I can talk to you as an individual. I manage you on my team. We can work
Yes.
together because we are a team. I'm not just that title either. How can I help you? Because
Yes.
again, you go home, you have kids, people have babies and all these wonderful things, but life is still going on. And it's to say again, how can we reconnect with people for who they are?
Hmm.
For in the times that we're in, and nothing else, and all the technology, all the AI, everything else, how can we really connect human to human, person to person,
Yeah.
shaking virtual hands, shaking real hands, rubbing elbows, whatever you want to do, you know?
Yeah. People definitely need to be seen more, and to be they need that personal touch. And although we don't have that, we need to, because I remember when we started implementing the 9 dimensional the wiz assessment with the 9 dimensions, employees would come in and they would be coming to see me because they were in conflict, they were bullying, they were harassment complaints, they were not getting along, they were disrespectful, and they would be sent to work with me. And I started using this 9 dimensions with them, showing them all the areas, and they would say, Joyce, are you sure my organization is paying for you to help me with my whole life? Joyce, this is my whole life. Are you sure
Mhm.
they know what you're doing? Did you show them this model? And I'm like, yes, they did. I did. And they're paying for me to do this? Yes, they are. Oh, well, maybe they're not that bad after all.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not that bad a workplace because people like when you show interest and you value them and you show interest in their well-being, you show interest in how they're living their life. That's what why would you want to go every day to work for an organization and they don't care if you live or die, how well you're doing? It
Yeah.
just doesn't work that way. Humans are designed to be in network of relationships. Humans are designed to be in groups where they're seen, they're known, they have status. They grow, they develop, they contribute. And the same thing should happen at work. And every leader should ask themselves, is our team a community where everyone feels that they have a place, they're connected, they have some status, and they can contribute and they helps them to feel purposeful? If the answer is no, then you need to go back to the drawing board and see where things are going wrong, what you need to do differently, and how you can help your teams to up level and get a better experience, because when they feel good at work, they work better. It's science. It's the gospel truth.
You know, I love this conversation now. And I think it may have went over some people's heads, but COVID has proven to us those very things that you stated, that we need human connection. We need to feel a part of something bigger than just ourselves. And, and I talk about that because there was a very long period of isolation, that we went into, and it was almost like, and they said, oh, okay, we can go back outside. It was always like the gates open. And it was like we just wanted to go into the grocery store, just, go to the parks, do things that we wouldn't normally do just to be around people
Yeah,
because
the
we
other
were so
people.
isolated for such a time.
Hmm.
And it's now we're also facing the aftermath in the same breath of still having to rebuild the muscle and skill of how do we communicate as people, how do we, with tech, especially with AI and everything kind of taking over our critical thinking in some areas. It's like, how do
Hmm.
we still come down to earth in the most practical way and still reconnect and still have these conversations and not let the tool be the final driver, that it's just that, that it's just that tool, that mechanism to leverage for information, to have that conversation, you know
Yeah.
to really see the other person. So I love that we're in a time where these conversations are much more receptive prior to, when we think about psychological safety in the workplace, mental health. These aren't new things. They've
No,
always existed.
absolutely.
Yeah,
You're very correct.
it's just something that has become increasingly important. I
Yes.
talk to people who think about, having this multi-generational workforce, saying that people don't want to work and people don't want to do certain things, or Gen Z doesn't want to do certain things. It's not the case. It's just when you think about how much trauma we faced as human beings from, our Gen Y, I think it is, parents who've worked and maybe retired at this point and had to work themselves to the bone, and didn't give themselves that full 9 point, view of themselves at work. It just, you work, you went home, you work, you went home.
Yeah.
And we're at a place of, it's not just that anymore. It's so much more. We're at a point of chasing purpose, because if you think about it, who wants to live, work, and die? And very little that we
Nobody wants to do that, but a hell of a lot of people are just doing that, right?
Yeah,
Work, live, and die. You're right. Yes.
yeah. So
Hmm.
it's again, stepping outside of that perspective, what we've always known, and saying, okay, you know what, how can we evolve this? Look at this from a different angle. Again, controllable. Work doesn't have to be just that. Yes, we want to be productive. We got to make money. We have to, get the evidence and all the things. But we have people in these seats. Those people
Yeah.
that we nurture, we
People need
develop, we
connection.
support, and grow the business. And
Yeah.
you know the person, you know their needs, you know their desires. You can cater to it. You feed them, they feed you. It's a simple effect. You
Yeah.
know.
So, Teresa, if someone is looking here, they're looking at this podcast, they've listened, they get to this point, what do you want to leave with them? What would you like to leave with them? And just speak to that person right now. Look at them in the eye and speak to them like you're saying, "Hey."
I would say if you're a director or aspiring leader and you are in the thick of managing people and you think, gosh, I, I don't know what to do. They didn't give me any training. What is the next step? Because I really want to take this on. connect with me on LinkedIn. I will um, visit my website, www.blueprint.design, and blueprint spelled BLEU, print.design, and let's talk about it. Let's talk about some practical ways that don't overwhelm you, that don't take a whole lot of time in your day, but just intentional strategies that meet the needs of you and your team to get over that hump. Let's answer those questions together. You do not have to do that work alone. I'm happy to
Mhm. Thank you so much. So these are powerful questions that help team leaders to get their teams motivated and get their teams back talking and having conversations and collaborating in the workplace. Thank you so much, Teresa, for being here. It was great to have this conversation with you. And those of you who are listening to the Resilience Catalyst show, I'm excited that we can bring this topic to you. Uh, Download, share with your colleagues, share with those in your workplace, in your family. As Teresa said, we don't want to just work, live, and die. There are 9 dimensions of your life, and you need to live well in all of these so you can truly experience life. Otherwise, you're missing out on so much. And many people tell me they don't even know we had 9 dimensions. Yes, we do. You need to find out about them. Listen to the show, connect with us at interpersonalwellness.com, and keep listening to further episodes here because I keep talking about the 9 dimensions and how you can measure, map, and build resilience in all of these 9 dimensions. So as you go back to your work or you go back to your play or your life, remember there is more to you than you realize, and all those parts of you deserve full time and attention. Thank you for being here, and we'll see you next time.
thank you.